people that understood the words to be different meanings 3,313 years ago onward, or perhaps even further back, depending on which book of the Bible that you're talking about. So, in the book Angels on the Ark, for instance, I always use this for instance, but the word gold actually means the word white 3,313 years ago when Moses was given the measurements for the Ark of the Covenant, when it says the mercy seat shall be made of pure gold. And then when you see what I call the mercy seat in the book of Revelation, I call this center section of the $1 bill the mercy seat, because to you, you would say it's not gold. This central portion is where the Lord's shenka, or energy, on the mercy seat resides. And you would say it's not gold, but it is gold. And I say it's gold because 3,313 years ago, according to the Tree of Language, which you can look up for yourself, the word white and the word gold were interchangeable. Therefore, this mercy seat, where the Lord God's energy, or shenka, resided on the real Ark of the Covenant, is a representation of the one God with these words, and it is setting inside the center of the mercy seat, which is pure white or pure gold, which is the largest portion of a pictograph on the $1 bill. This is also magnified to the largest word on any bill in the old style. And this is magnified because these individual pieces of crystalline nature that appears in the word one appear to be crystalline in nature. Now, if you look at them and you blow it up under a microscope, each one of those pieces looks like a trapezoidal figure, which is a representation of a prism or magnifier, because the way the glass is cut. Okay, so this is the way I broke down the pictography in the book of Revelation, the same way I broke down the pictography in the book of Genesis, which is the God pod. So this is how I did it, and going back to the words of the book itself, back to the bottom of page 763, I make a notation. These are notes before I get to the book of Revelation. This isn't the exact interpretation of the book of Revelation. This is all how I came to the understanding. I'm giving you a precursor into the way I think, so that you can understand that this wasn't just randomly put together. This was thought out, and the research was done to the best of my ability. Now, it is extremely difficult to do this. On average, 5 to 7 pages a day is the maximum amount of information that can be written with my limited abilities to do so. Well, you have to understand, folks, I was doing the research online and with the books I had at my disposal, and then crisscrossing the references in the Bible by utilizing the eSword program, which Rick, who owns the eSword program, was kind enough to allow me to use for free, and he allows you to use it for free too, to do my research, and then which has a search engine in it, and you can search for any word in the Bible or any phrase word in the Bible, and you can make notes and utilize it as a study book or a study guide. eSword has all of that stuff in it for free, and that's what I was doing with eSword, and then physical Bibles, and then the pictographs on the $1 bill, and the research through the different encyclopedias and references of each individual pictograph, whether it be a Mayan face of a Mayan god, or whether it be a type of webbing, or something that had to do with Euclidean optics. These are the precursor notes to the definitions and the interpolation of the book of Revelation. And in this part of the book on page 763, I explain that I have now been working on this project for 3 years and almost 7 days a week. The last year and a half, I am only up to Revelation chapter 6, verse 8. And that is very close to where it is going to end. At present rate of speed, it will take another 6 or 7 years to finish the book of Revelation alone, due to the fact that every time I make one new discovery, 6 more are immediately made afterwards. And to do the research would take, and we'll page down to the bottom, an additional editorial staff of several dozen people, a multitude of lifetimes. Now, in order for me to do the research necessary to do the rest of the book of Revelation, I estimated it would take to get from chapter 6, verse 8 to the end of the book of Revelation several years, or perhaps more, and that it simply wasn't worth the effort, considering I figured if I published what I had, which I did, I would be able to acquire an editorial staff to do the rest of the work. Even though the rest of the work is done inside here, and there are notes on the rest of it, to put it down on paper for my limited abilities, because I'm not so smart, you know, would have taken between, well, it could have took 7 years, it could have took 25 years. It depends on how often and how much time I had to work on it. So I decided to make videos and put the process forward. Hopefully someone would buy the rights, and then move me through the process in order to go ahead to the next level. So far, that hasn't happened. If anybody can make that happen, you receive a 10% finder's fee for any monies I receive for offers for a mini-series or to do the book professionally, or for the movie rights. The person who finds me a director, a script writer, a person that wants to produce a mini-series, you get 10%. I've mentioned this before. I mention it again, because the offers I get come from people that are... You think I'm way out there? I got news for you. Some of the people that come back with making me offers, they tell me that they're going to get back to me as soon as they go out and grab a bite to eat and get some weed. This is the kind of personal messages I get. The guy's going to get back to me with his telephone number as soon as he goes out and gets a bite to eat and grabs some weed. These are the people I want to help me progress to the next level of achievement. And now, with that, I mean, the guy's a nice guy and all of that, believe me, but, you know, I think I have an issue with that. But we're going to go, you never know, he might be the guy that makes the book famous. Okay, now we're going to go to page 764. At the top of the page, we're going to start reading at the top of the page. All of this information is necessary in order for you to see the mystery solved in chapter 1, verse 20. Which is basically so simple, it's blatantly obvious, but without the proper foundation, you cannot get from point A to point B. Of course, to digress, that piece of information was the 7 stars that are represented as the 7 denominations and the 7 churches, aka the 7 denominations of United States currency that are in use at this time. It is virtually impossible to get from point A to point B without a solid foundation in which to base the final conclusion upon. And that's why I'm giving you this precursoral information, so that you can get to a solid foundation that there is merit in what I say, and you just have to follow the thought process to the end. Yet once you get there and the answer seems too simple to be real, which happens to concur perfectly with several other portions of the Bible that explain that God will reveal himself to the whole world, including the greatest to the smallest of mankind, which would infer that God is going to make the final solution relatively easy to comprehend. And what I just said there, in the book called the Bible, it says that God is going to reveal himself to the greatest and the smallest of the people of the world. Now, if he did this in a vision, a three-dimensional construct in the sky, everybody would understand it to be God. Now, there is also the other side of the coin, where God can eventually show you that there's a codices between the $1 bill and the book of the Bible. And once you understand how simplistic the codices is via the pictographs, once you understand what the pictographs mean, then the Bible becomes a book that holds enough information in the book to show you that the codices between the words in the Bible and the pictographs on the $1 bill are systematically linked to one another, and were done so by an entity that goes far beyond